They always said family comes first, and for most of my life, I believed that blindly, stubbornly, even when it hurt, especially when it hurt. I'm 42 now, living in Pennsylvania, and until recently, my life was built entirely around the needs of others, not strangers, my mother, my younger brother, Daniel, the people who were supposed to be my support system, but who treated me more like a safety net they never intended to repay. It started small. A few $100s to help cover Daniel's rent while he figured things out. Then it was Mom's car, which needed repairs, then her teeth, then his business idea. Every ask came with a promise. Just this once, last time, I swear, you're the only one we can count on. And every time, I gave in. I wired the money, rearranged my schedule, skipped vacations, deferred dreams. I wanted to move to Seattle years ago, pursue a job with a startup that actually excited me. But Mom cried, said she needed me close after Dad died. When I got engaged at 35, Daniel accidentally wrecked my car on the weekend of our engagement party, and I spent the evening at the police station instead of celebrating. My fiancée left me 6 months later, tired of coming second to my family's chaos. I didn't blame her. Not really. You convince yourself that sacrifice is noble, that maybe, eventually, they'll appreciate it. But the truth is, some people only take. It was past 10 p.m., and I was still at the office, hunched over reports I'd already proofed twice. Sipping stale coffee that burned more than it helped. My eyes ached, my back ached, but that didn't matter. We had a board review coming up, and I couldn't afford to be anything less than perfect, not with layoffs happening across the company. My phone buzzed. Mom. I stared at the screen a few seconds longer than I should have. I knew that ring. It was never just checking in. It always meant something. Hi, sweetheart, she began, voice syrupy soft, too soft. I wouldn't ask if it weren't important. I closed my eyes. It's Daniel. She went on. He's launching his podcast, remember? About lifestyle branding and his journey. He needs to throw a launch event, something professional. Real investors might show up. Her voice trembled, just enough to signal that I was about to become the villain if I said no. Mom, I already gave him please. He's really trying this time, and you're the only one who can help. You're a rock, honey. Your father would have been so proud of you. The way you always take care of the family. That name, Dad, they always knew how to use him. Just $2,000, she added. We'll pay you back, promise. I wired the money before I even took off my jacket. Then I sat there in the dark, wondering why it still felt like failing, even when I did exactly what they asked. I don't remember the impact, just the screech of tires, the sickening crunch of metal, and a sudden, impossible stillness. They told me later it was a head-on collision. A teenager ran a red light. Texting. I was driving home after another 14-hour day, barely awake. My body was already on autopilot. I guess it finally gave out. When I came to, everything was blurred, lights above me flickering like underwater stars, voices muffled and far away, tubes in my arm, beeping machines, pain, everywhere. Mr. Langston? A nurse's voice, kind, steady. You're in the ICU. There was an accident. We had to sedate you. You've been out for 12 hours. My throat was dry as dust. I tried to speak. Failed. She leaned in. You're stable. But it was close. The first night was critical. You coded once. We got you back. I turned my head, painfully slow. No familiar faces, no one in the chair beside the bed, just me, alone. Family. I rasped. Call. My mom, brother. She nodded, brushing a clipboard aside. We'll try again. Try again. They haven't picked up yet, she added gently, but we'll keep calling. And then she left. I stared at the ceiling, heart monitor echoing in the quiet. For the first time, something cracked deep inside me, not from the pain, from the silence. The next day, I was more awake, enough to sit upright with help, enough to feel every ache in full clarity. The nurse returned mid-morning, phone in hand. We're trying your mother again. Do you want to listen in? I nodded. She tapped the speaker and held the phone close. It rang 4 times before a voice finally answered. Hello? Mom sounded distracted, background music thumping faintly. Hi, Mrs. Langston. This is Mercy Hospital, calling about your son, Ethan. A pause, then, too casually. Oh, right? Is he okay? He's stable now, but last night was critical. We believe it's important that, she sighed, cutting in. I understand. But tonight's Daniel's launch party. It's a huge moment for him. We've already paid the deposit. The photographer's booked. And I promised I'd help with guests, ma'am. The nurse tried again, but she spoke louder. Doctors always exaggerate. They have to. Liability or whatever. Just keep me updated if anything changes. The call ended with a soft click. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. The nurse looked stricken, but I just turned my head away. The coldness in her voice wasn't new. I'd heard it before, just never this clearly. All those years, all that help, all those sacrifices, and now, when I was fighting for my life. They couldn't even skip a party. That was the moment something inside me truly broke. Or maybe it finally woke up. They never loved me. Not really. They loved what I could give them. Morning light spilled through the hospital window, pale and indifferent. I was still alive. Breathing and utterly hollow. Could I get a pen? Paper? I asked the nurse. My voice was stronger now, too strong. Maybe it startled her. She nodded, brought a notepad and pen, and left me alone. I began to write. It wasn't rage. It wasn't even grief anymore. It was clarity. Every line came easy. Decades of silence finally spilling onto the page. Dear Mom, dear Daniel, you won't be seeing me again. Not at your parties, not in your inboxes, not on your bank statements. You don't need a brother. You don't need a son. You need an ATM with a familiar voice, and I've played that role long enough. I paid for Daniel's failed startups, his rehab stint, his car. I covered your mortgage during the pandemic. I gave up moving to Seattle because you couldn't manage the house alone. I canceled vacations, postponed my own life, always with the hope that someday you'd choose me back. Yesterday, I almost died, and you chose a party. So this is my final deposit, my silence. By the time you read this, I'll be gone. I'm leaving the state, starting over somewhere you'll never find me. Please, don't call, don't email, don't ask friends. You made your decision, and now I've made mine. I signed it simply. Ethan. I folded the letter and handed it to the nurse. Can you give this to my mother if she ever shows up? She looked at me for a long time, then nodded solemnly. Later that day, my friend Greg arrived. He didn't ask questions, just helped me into a coat, wheeled me to his car, and drove. The road behind us disappeared in the mirror, and for the first time in years, I didn't look back. They arrived late, a full day too late. The nurse said she recognized them instantly. Mom in her pressed coat, Daniel with his designer sneakers and restless eyes. They expected a quiet room, maybe some dramatic tears. What they found instead was a made bed and an envelope resting on the pillow. Mom read the letter first. Her hands trembled, her face, usually composed, turned pale. Daniel snatched it halfway through, his eyes darting down the page. He's serious? He hissed. He left. No one answered. He left. He repeated, louder. What the hell am I supposed to do now? My credit cards are maxed. Who's gonna pay my rent? Mom sat down slowly, her voice barely a whisper. He knows about the roof money. Daniel froze. What? The repairs. I told him it was for the roof, but I used it for your business loan. For a moment, neither of them moved. The nurse told me later it was like a mask cracked off both their faces. The panic wasn't grief. It was about losing the supply line. They didn't cry. They calculated. Recovery was slow, but it was mine. Each breath, each step, was earned. I stayed with Greg for a month, then moved into a small apartment in Vermont. No one knew the address. That was the point. I started therapy. At first, I spoke little, just sat there. Then the words came, years of exhaustion, guilt, and confusion. My therapist didn't judge. She listened, asked, challenged gently. I changed my phone number, hired a lawyer to sever all co-signed accounts, shut down the joint credit lines, rewrote my will. I was no longer anyone's safety net, and for the first time in my life, I started asking myself what I wanted. I joined a local book club, volunteered at a shelter twice a week, met people who didn't know my past, didn't expect anything from me except presence. I wasn't the responsible one. I was just Ethan. Mornings were quiet, evenings, calm. I'd make coffee, sit by the window, and feel it settle in me. Peace, not excitement, not euphoria, just peace, and it was enough. It's been a year. I still think about them sometimes, not with anger, not even sadness, just clarity. The kind that only comes when you've finally stepped far enough away from the noise to hear yourself think. They never called again. Maybe they finally understood. Or maybe they just found another lifeline. Either way, I don't wonder anymore. I built something different now. Not flashy, not dramatic, just honest. My friends here, they check in, not because they need something, but because they care. We share meals, stories, silence. I've learned that family isn't blood. It's not obligation. It's not guilt wrapped in love. Family is chosen, earned, built with time, truth, and mutual care. I used to believe leaving them made me a traitor. Now I understand staying would have been the real betrayal to myself. Some ties don't bind, they choke, and sometimes, to survive, you have to let go of the people you loved most, especially when they never truly loved you back.